Well, it's good to see you this morning. Good to see you again. Some of you who are here the first session. We're going to continue in Matthew chapter 25. If you want to turn over there with me, Matthew chapter 25. We started talking about the parable of the talents in Matthew 25, and we're going to continue in the parable of the talents in Matthew 25. The first thing I want to emphasize to you is what we began with, and that is verse 14, the beginning verse of the parable. Jesus is speaking and he says, "For it is just like a man about to go on a journey. He called his own servants and entrusted his possessions to them." I want to make the point again that that's what our life presently consists of. Jesus has gone on a journey. John 14, "I go away to prepare a place for you. I'll come again and receive you to myself." He has gone away and He will come again. And so we are where these three men are in the story. We are the ones left behind with His possessions entrusted to us, and it is now our job to make something of them. It's our job to do some work. We find out in verse 15 that He has given and entrusted and given to each one according to his ability, so we don't even have to worry about, is God going to require more of me than I can give? We don't even have to discuss that in our minds. We don't have to worry with it. What we need to know is God has entrusted His possessions to us, and primarily in the story, in the context, His possessions would be the opportunities and blessings He gives us in relation to His church, His valuable church. And so we need to begin this parable and life generally from the standpoint of, I have work to do. The Savior has gone away and He's coming back, and I need to be prepared for His return, so I have to do my work. If we look at life like that, life simplifies. So in the first session, we talked a little bit about the 5-talent man who turned himself into a 10-talent man, and the 2-talent one who turned himself into a 4-talent one. We're going to talk a little bit now about the 1-talent man. And I want to begin by making this statement. God is going to judge us not merely for what we may do wrong, but for what we do not do that ought to have been done. So often in our Christian lives, we get to thinking there are things I shouldn't do. I need to not do this, not say this, not think this, not go here. And so we reduce life to what I do not do. And sometimes we feel really good about ourselves because we avoid things that we should not do. That's well and good. There are lots of things to be avoided, no question about that. But in this story, it's all about what should have been done that wasn't done with the 1-talent man. And that helps us as well focus our minds on, okay, I'm avoiding the bad things, but what am I actually doing? How am I working for the Lord? What is it that I'm accomplishing on His behalf? He wasn't condemned because he was out doing bad things. He was condemned because he didn't do what he should have done. Read it with me. Go down to verse 24 in Matthew chapter 25. "The man who had received 1 talent also approached and said, 'Master, I know you. You're a harsh man, reaping where you haven't sown and gathering where you haven't scattered seed. So I was afraid and went off and hid your talent in the ground. See, you have what is yours.'" A couple of things we always mention about this 1-talent fellow is he did know his master. He did have a good understanding of his master. He knew that his master expected him to work hard. He knew that his master was demanding. He understood that, not unfairly demanding, not at all, because we've already established that nothing more would be required of him than what he was able to give, but he did know that he had a demanding master. And in the face of knowing that, he still chose to do nothing. Have you ever wondered what he did do? I know it's a parable. I know that he didn't literally go do something else. But have you ever wondered down that road of what might he have done if he didn't do what the others did? If he didn't take his 1 talent and turn it into something else, what was he doing? The story, of course, doesn't allow for that kind of answer. But when you think about it, he is a servant of his master who, before the master went away, was doing something. What was he doing? How was he spending his time? As we've already remarked, there was no indication that he was doing anything wrong. None of them were corrected for going out and doing something bad. But he is condemned because he didn't do the thing he should have done. Do you ever feel like in life sometimes you're busy doing a whole lot of things, but sometimes not really the thing that matters? The one good thing, Mary and Martha? Do you ever think about that? That I'm really busy doing lots of things. I have a full life. I am constantly engaged in things. But am I really doing the thing that needs to be done? Again, this story is really about preparedness. It is about how we relate to God and His business when He returns to gather up His business. It has to do with His church. Are we building that? Are we doing that? Because it's entirely possible for you and me to be really busy doing all sorts of things that are good. Maybe even things that are needful. But if we neglect to do the one thing that must be done, the care and building of His church, then we're going to be like that one-talent man. And that's hard for me sometimes. Because we like to think that we're engaged in good things, necessary things. We need to go to work. We need to go to school. We need to do our work. We need to do our schoolwork. We need to do all sorts of things. But if we leave out the Lord's church in all that we're doing, then it won't matter how much good we've done otherwise. I find it remarkable that this man, knowing his master, says, I'm kind of paralyzed, I'm just going to bury it and I'll give it back to you. When he knew that was not what his master required. He knew that wasn't the nature of his master. But he tells us why he did it, verse 25. In verse 25 he says, so I was afraid. I was afraid of my demanding master. Now, you might think the parable would then read where the master would say, well, okay, that's a pretty good argument. I understand because I am so demanding. I see where you would be afraid of me. I see where you would kind of be hesitant because you might make a mistake or whatever. That's not the response. Have you ever wondered why that's not the response? The nature of the master here is discussed from the standpoint of he is harsh, he is demanding. But you know more about the master also, don't you? You know that your master, the one you serve, is also very gracious. He has given these gifts by His grace. They're not earned. He has given them by His grace. You know your master to be very gracious. And so what you and I will never say, listen to me now, what we'll never say is, I can't work in the kingdom because I might make a mistake. I won't work in the Lord's kingdom because I might make a mistake. We'll never say that. We're never going to back down from fear. We're always going to say, He demands that I do work for Him. He demands that I give my all, so I'm going to do that. If I make a mistake, if I fail, we'll deal with that. But I'm talking about a master who wants me to share in His joy. We talked about that the first session. His goal for me is not servitude. His goal for me is a joint sharing. And so, I am not afraid. We will not serve Him from fear. We will serve Him from a standpoint of we know He is demanding and we need to live up to that. If we begin to fear, we'll begin to slow down. There's one other thing I want you to think about in this, and that is part of the master's response. If you look down at verse 26, he says to him, you evil and lazy servant. If you knew that I reap where I haven't sown and gathered where I haven't scattered, then you should have deposited my money with the bankers, and I would have received my money back with interest when I return. The New American Standard says you ought to have deposited my money. We usually talk about this concept from the standpoint of there are some oughts, there are some should-dos in life, and we know what they are. The master says, okay, if you were not able to do in your mind what I know you can do, then you ought to have at least done this. I want you to think about that from the standpoint of the grace we just mentioned. Sometimes we look at service to the kingdom and we are intimidated by it. All of us are in some ways. We look at various aspects of service to God And we see them as not insurmountable, but sometimes really difficult. How am I going to do that? Maybe we think to ourselves, it's not my personality, it's not my nature, I'm going to have to really struggle to do it, and if I try and fail, what happens, and all of that. And we talk about His grace helping us through that. This is the point that is made in the parable. If you're struggling with something, if you're not sure if you can do it, if you want to try but you're nervous about it, take those baby steps. Do what you can do today, and then add on that tomorrow. The idea of, well, you should have at least tried. The 5-talent man gets 5 more. The 2-talent man gets 2 more. There is no demand that the 1-talent man gain 1 more. There is a demand that he try to do something. We talk to young men about that when we talk about service in the public assembly. For a young man, it is a big thing to walk up here and make a talk, even to say a prayer in the assembly, to speak up. It is an intimidating thing sometimes for young men to do that. They know it's their responsibility. They get it. They know they're going to have to conquer that. But those first few steps are hard sometimes. We understand that. And so we never demand that the moment you become a Christian, you stand up and start preaching out of the text and go on for 30 minutes. We never demand that. We'll demand those little steps. But you have to do something. That concept is really helpful for those of us who have personalities that are hesitant, that are a little bit more reserved. Do what you can do today. See a sense of ought or should, even with the smallest of things. Start privately with people and work out from there. But do something for the kingdom. The only condemnation in the whole parable is the condemnation of not trying. Every one of us has the ability to try. Every one of us can do something. I want you to think about how that relates to this business of being prepared. Sometimes we look kind of one-dimensionally at service to God, and we say, okay, if I do X, Y, Z, then I get to go to heaven. That's what will happen. If I do this, this, and this, then I am now qualified to go to heaven. Gleno has a saying from time to time that he shares with me, and that is that we're all going to be who we are at judgment. We're not going to automatically become somebody different. We're going to be who we are. And if I'm thinking in terms of I've got to do X, Y, and Z so I can earn heaven or so I can qualify for heaven, then we're kind of missing what X, Y, and Z are all about. We're kind of missing what service to the kingdom is all about. What we're trying to do is work while the master is gone, not to hit some sort of a qualification point where we can say, I've got enough credits to get in, but we're trying to become the kind of people that the kingdom will handle, that the kingdom will accept. And so we're trying to change ourselves into service-oriented people, into selfless people, into people of humility. We're trying to transform ourselves into kingdom citizens. So don't think in terms of, well, I got to do this, this, and this, and then I can get in. We're trying to become what God wants us to be so we fit in His kingdom. Because at the point of death, we don't automatically become somebody different. I cannot live my whole life being resentful for having to serve God and then all of a sudden think, when judgment occurs, I'm going to stand before Him and be happy to serve Him. It won't work that way. If I'm a reluctant servant now, I'm going to be, listen, in eternity, a reluctant servant, which means I'm probably not going to be where I want to be. And so all of the work that is done for the 5-talent man, the 2-talent man, and should have been done for the 1-talent man was to enrich them so they become what God knows they need to become. It is not merely a matter of checking some boxes and saying, I did this, this, and this, so I'm good to go. Because when we stand before Him in judgment, it won't be a list of check boxes. It'll just be who we are. That frightens me sometimes. It'll just be who we are. If we're mad, angry people now, then at the point of judgment, we're going to be mad, angry people. We may have sat in a church building a whole lot, but we're going to be mad, angry people who sit in a church building. If we're resentful people now, we'll be a resentful person on the day of judgment. Service in His kingdom is designed to change that about us. It is designed to cause us to step back and say, okay, my Creator wants me to share in His joy for all eternity. In order to do that, I need to change my focus from me to He and His cause, His people. We say sometimes that Jesus was the greatest teacher, both because of what He said and because of how He lived. He certainly said what was true and right. He is truth. But He served people selflessly. Imagine for just a moment now, if your service in this parable, you kind of insert yourself, your service to Him was to preach and teach the gospel for 3 good years and then to be crucified by the people you were loving and trying to teach. And you knew all of that, you understood that, and that was your task. How would you approach that? What kind of an attitude would you have as you undertook that responsibility? I'm going to serve these people and love these people and do what's best for these people. I'm going to put self aside and give my all for these people. That's what I'm going to do. And at the end of it all, they're going to hang me on a cross. They're literally going to nail me to a cross and watch me die. That's what's going to happen. What kind of an attitude would you have during all of those 3 years? It seems to me that so often we expect too much in return for service to God now on earth. Because we want what we want. We want to do what we want to do. We want to live like we want to live, but we also want to be prepared for the day of judgment and share in His glory. And I'm just not sure those are going to go together. It may be that in order for us to share in His glory in the day of judgment, in order for us to be prepared when the Master returns to settle accounts, it may be that we have to change who we are. It may be that we have to get better at loving other people and serving other people selflessly. So, as you look back at verse 14, where it says He called His servants, He gave to each of them according to their ability, and He went on a journey. As you think about that, ask yourself how you're doing. Jesus has gone to prepare a place for you. He has left you here to do the work. How are you doing with the work? Not how are you doing with your job, not even how are you doing with your family, but how are you doing with the work of His kingdom that He left for you to do? How are you doing with that? And what is your attitude toward that? Is it a checkbox attitude where I was there? I mean, they've got me on the roll, right? I was there. Is it that? Or is it, that doesn't matter. I'm trying to become a kingdom citizen to help the kingdom even more. That's really what I want us to get out of the concept of being prepared. The sense of ought is there. The idea of knowing your Master is there. It's all there. But the overriding concern of the parable is you be working so you can be ready. Because the work you do in the kingdom changes you. It's designed to change you. You can flip it around and look at it from the backside. If you're not working in the kingdom, if you're not devoted to the kingdom, you're not being transformed into the image of His Son. And when the day comes, you won't look like you're supposed to look. You see, the business of working in the kingdom is for us, not Him. It doesn't enrich Him, it enriches us. It doesn't make Him better, it makes us better. And so let's learn to work in His kingdom while we have the opportunity. Because one day the Master is going to return. If you look back at your Bible, in verse 19 it says, after a long time, the master of those servants came and settled accounts with them. They didn't know when he was coming back. no warning in the story. Jesus told it that way for a reason. The preceding chapter, chapter 25, Jesus says no one knows the day or the hour. Not even the Son knows the day or the hour, but the Father alone. So let's work. And through our working, let's become more transformed so we are ready to be citizens of His kingdom. If we can help you in any way, you let us know while we stand and sing.